believe she was a sperm thief. My name is Matthew Kroll.
Do you mean a semen demon? My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film One Battle After Another.
I could have jumped in on that. Can we try it again?
One
battle
after.
Let's start again.
One
battle
after
another.
Okay, great. So take your own audio editing software, listeners, and pick your favorite, and then you just go with that, and that is the canonical beginning to this episode.
Today is like Christmas, and I was about to say we are like the Christmas Explorers Club.
Wow.
But it's a new Paul Thomas Anderson film, which for me and film bros and film lovers alike is like Christmas. It's a big day. There's only 10 of these in the world.
It is a big day.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about this. Were you excited about this?
No. Here's the truth about it. Like I like Paul Thomas Anderson as much as the next film bro.
Mm-hmm.
But the first trailer for I know you don't watch trailers, so this probably doesn't play.
Yeah.
The first trailer for this felt awful.
Okay.
It felt like a knockoff Wes Anderson movie.
Okay.
And I was like, what is Pauly doing? What is happening here? I didn't understand it. The second trailer fixed it. Like
Right.
It was just, oh, okay, sick. But there was something about just like getting knocked off the hype train of this one from the first trailer that I just wasn't terribly excited to see it.
There's famously, I think it started with The Master, and he probably inherited this idea from Stanley Kubrick on Eyes Wide Shut. It was that he cut the first trailer for The Master. And the first trailer for The Master is masterful in that it doesn't give away much of the movie. It is very tone, vibe, in these sort of strange ways. Sometimes directors can be great marketeers. Sometimes they can be really bad marketeers. He turns out he is a particularly good one. I think I had read that he didn't cut the trailers for this movie. This is an unusual film. It's a $150 million film, which is the largest in his career. It is not doing well at the box office at this point. But I don't think that actually particularly matters in this case.
Interesting.
Warner Brothers is making, so I'm going to wind back the clock a little bit to 2020 or 2021 when Tenet was released.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what we're seeing with Warner Brothers right now stems from the release of Tenet, which is Christopher Nolan's film that released during the pandemic, and Christopher Nolan was quite upset at the fact that they had released it.
You mean 2020?
Yeah, 2020. Released it to movie theaters kind of tepidly during the pandemic, and then like immediately launched it on HBO Max, their subscriber service. And he was upset about this for a number of reasons, right or wrong. We talked about that around that period. I believe we had a mailbag episode.
Yeah, where we talked about it.
We talked about that specifically. Since then, what happened was that Christopher Nolan basically left Warner Brothers, which had been his home for the previous 20 years. We'd made all the Batman movies, Interstellar, and a bunch of things. And set up a bidding war for his next film, which would be Oppenheimer. Every studio in town wanted Oppenheimer. I believe Universal got it and made $1 billion as well as won all the Oscars. So that was kind of a significant blow to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers then, my reading of the rationale of this was that Warner Brothers were like, look, Marvel exists now. Universal has Fast and the Furious and all these different franchises. We can be some other place. And what we can be is a place for auteur filmmakers or filmmakers with unique voices to make their large picture here. Because also A24 exists out there as well, offering incentives for filmmakers, and Blumhouse. So Warner Brothers is trying to carve out this niche. The success they've had this year, they are the largest box office draw in Hollywood right now. The success they've had is with the Minecraft movie Sinners, and now I don't think One Battle After Another is their big box office push, but they spent a lot of money on it. And it is the film that I think that they're aiming for all their awards.
Yes, that makes total sense.
So in a way, it's a sort of a really big play, and it is a big movie for P.T. Anderson as well. Apologies, I jumped straight in because I have so much I want to talk about.
It's super good context. Also, we're in the global consolidation era.
Yep.
So Warner Brothers is in discussion, at least the rumor, with Paramount.
Paramount has recently been acquired by Skydance, and Skydance is in conversation to acquire Warner Brothers. At the same time, Larry Ellison is in conversations to acquire TikTok. So
yeah, and the Saudis and Jared Kushner's investment firm just bought EA for $55 billion. So I think what we're finding here is that don't worry, all your content's only going to get better.
Yeah. Well, if One Battle After Another is anything to go by, there is a place for. But so the other.
No, but I'm saying, sorry. What I'm saying is, I love that Warner Brothers is doing this with One Battle After Another. I feel like the more you get to the Skydance of it all, the more things are more consolidated. I feel like precedent would say that in like things that are like this that are good for like a smaller aspect of the business, i.e. awards, etc., will fall under the wayside of like, what if we just made like 3 Minecraft movies? Like that's where whenever these media companies come together, it's very rare that they continue to do the thing, like all the things we like.
I look, here's my hesitation at what you just said. I agree with you that Skydance is known for Transformers, Mission Impossibles, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So their acquisition of Paramount, always sort of like, I didn't quite understand it from a business point of view, other than it like opens up their marketplace, gets them news of sports and gaming as well, although they were in gaming before that. Skydance's success has largely been driven by a few things, but one of their biggest sort of like, centerpieces is Tom Cruise with the Mission Impossible franchise. And I think recently Tom Cruise has made a push to move away from the Mission Impossibles. Obviously, he's ending them. And then go into kind of like, he's doing a film with Alejandro Inarritu as well. So I think my sense of the world as it turns right now is the things that you're saying are correct, that there is this consolidation effort. There is a sense that the movie business is suddenly becoming more vertically or horizontally integrated, or basically the old MGM days. However, I think the last 15 years of Marvel box office domination has kind of started, and the success of things like Oppenheimer and Barbie have suggested that there are other ways forward. And Sinners was particularly important in that conversation. So I think, while what you're saying is true, I do think that there are studio heads or studios starting to think about what are the movies that actually inspire longevity in our product, because also A24 does this.
Right. I think my only thing is, and I like that we're going to agree with each other 90% and keep ping ponging back. But I think I hope that in all of these mergers, those studio heads are still there and still have power, that are thinking like that, because it seems like oftentimes things like that do tend to go poof. Well, so again, the
great case study is Michael DeLuca, who produced One Battle After Another, who's a studio head at Warner Brothers, who was Paul Thomas Anderson's initial producer on Boogie Nights and Magnolia in his early films. So he was an individual one-off producer back then, but now he's a studio head now, and he's the person who pushed for One Battle After Another with a budget of $150 million. So there is, examples of that, like people who've been entrenched, who've worked on, from the 90s, worked on, films that like seem to have importance. And
I'm just saying that when you consolidate, oftentimes those voices that have been with someone that have grown up in the ranks that go up get sort of subservient to another voice that just bought them. And so that can, again, we're going to find out. There's no way to know.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. I think I am very glad that this movie exists. I'm sad to hear that it is not doing terribly well, but I do agree with you that it's almost that like in the current Skydance Warner Brothers, I think that was always kind of the plan. I think, judging actually from the way that both trailers played as 2 entirely different films, I don't know if they had a real good grasp on how to market this. It's interesting because like I think they maybe knew that like the film bros would see it no matter what, so it didn't particularly matter. But like how you get this in front of a mainstream audience, I think their second trailer did way more good. But I wonder if there was a lot of people like myself that are not entrenched in, or like that are less like, that are like me, that saw the first trailer but might also not be entrenched in film, that like saw it and were like, okay, is Wes Anderson, what's happening? Like it was a bad trailer, Sheer. Like
I haven't seen it yet.
But and it sucks because like, you know what it is, and this is me literally pontificating, I have no idea. It focuses a lot on like almost solely on Leo's character at the phone, at the payphone.
Yeah.
And you're not sure like the take of what's going on. Like, it's funny. I think if now having seen the movie, that's one of my favorite scenes. I love that scene. I could see people working on the movie being like, that's the trailer.
Yeah.
But I think if you haven't seen the movie, the additional weight and context and things around that, if you don't have that, I think the scene is like, just like, okay. But if it like in the context of the film, it's wonderful. So I don't know.
The other side of this is that it was it's the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie that has a Fortnite tie-in. So there is a Fortnite game of one battle after another, completely with all of these characters.
There is?
Yeah, it's made by production company Sawhorse.
In the Fortnite creator.
Yeah, in the Fortnite.
So there's not like the skins for the characters.
Yeah, there is.
No.
So yeah. So you can play as some of these, or you interact with these characters, and there's a one battle after another game in Fortnite. Ironically, I watched a review of that recently where they talked about the fact that like a player went in and he was the only player in this game, which I thought was wild. I think the reason why Warner Brothers were excited about this, the reason why a lot of people are excited about this, is that there's a lot of potential crossover. The other side of this is that this is a movie that I'm couching the way I'm saying this because it's a very weird phrase to say, and it's sort of in terms that I don't like using. But this could be marketed as a black movie, and I noticed that this could be a movie that plays well in black audiences that they typically sort of reserve for people like Jordan Peele and that sort of thing. And I don't know if they're doing that right now, and I don't know if they're like really making that case for it. Because it is part of the sort of branding of it. And again, I actually don't like using that phrase, and I don't like using the way that is, but I just know that is a true fact of how to market a movie.
Sure.
So we're speaking very specifically about the marketing of the movie, not the movie itself.
Speaking of the marketing, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just stuck on.
You're watching the Fortnite?
I'm stuck on the Fortnite. I need to go play this.
Yeah. Apparently it's okay. And
what the fuck?
You go through tunnels, and at some point there's a mention of there's a lot of Easter eggs to Paul Thomas Anderson films in here. For example, the piano from Punch Drunk Love is in there. I don't know if the Fortnite audience is going to get that.
I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge something until I've played it.
Yeah.
But I cannot fathom like the things that this movie is trying to do and say, translating at all into Fortnite.
So I'm going to come in with two or three hot takes about this, just as a person who loves Paul Thomas Anderson.
Should we hold on to those takes real quick?
Yeah.
There's two things. One, hi everyone.
Hi.
We're so rude. We haven't said hello to you. Email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please tell us what you're thinking about movies coming out these days. Also, what you think about one battle after another for after this discussion. Also, if you're listening to this on any other podcast platform and you have a YouTube's account, please go subscribe to us over there as well. We are working on some things, some fancier things over there, and we want to get that sub count up. And every one of those does very much help, even if you're going to plan to still listen on your audio formats.
We may do video.
We may do video.
Yeah.
We didn't even try this time.
No, because I failed last time.
We didn't try this time because we're all in a timeout for that.
Yeah. If you listen to our last week's episode on him, just listen to the first minute where I realize I didn't hit record, which is the worst nightmare for anyone.
I don't know if you noticed this, Shahir, but like, because I thought we were recording. I thought we were a video. But I think me, you, and Jarrah were all like,
playing to the camera.
We were playing to the camera. Like, I'm sitting here, like, I'm picking my nails. I'm doing, like, I'm hanging out, just like sort of looking around, talking, chatting like we normally do. But when the camera's on, you sit up straight, and I'm not biting my fingernail. I'm like not doing all that stuff. And then the second you said, we don't have the video, I just slumped in my chair again.
It was such an embarrassing moment for me because I'd gone through and set up the video. I just had
every setting.
I just went through every. I just realized the one setting I didn't go through was press the record button, which is how you make movies, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. And then the last thing I will say before we begin to get into your 2 points here is I would like to read the Internet Movie Database description of One Battle After Another, which is, quote, when their evil enemy resurfaces after 16 years, a group of ex-revolutionaries reunite to rescue one of their own's daughter.
One of their own's daughter. I feel like it's not that that's bad writing. I think that's absolutely all grammatically correct. It just feels
I think
funny.
it's too grammatically correct. I think this is the clinical. This is the clinical description of this movie that is technically grammatically correct, but does not offer excitement and or insight into what is going on. I'll give it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
The description.
There you go.
Sorry. So now, getting back to it, your 2 points.
2 points. First off, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. Incredibly formative filmmaker for me. I'm the right age to have seen Magnolia, Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, bunch of stuff in movie theaters at formative times of my life. I think we did the only one we've done on the podcast is Phantom Thread.
And Licorice Pizza. Didn't we do Licorice Pizza?
I don't think we did Licorice Pizza.
We didn't?
I feel like we watched it, but we may have included it in a top 10 on a top 10 discussion, but I don't think we did a full episode on it. Licorice Pizza and Inherent Vice are the 2 PTA films that I don't particularly resonate with, but I will always give them a rewatch when possible. I've watched Licorice Pizza only once. I've watched Inherent Vice a couple of times now.
So sad. I just went to onlymoviepodcast.com, which also, if you haven't been, it's a nice little place where all of our stuff is. I typed in the word pizza into our search term, and not only did Licorice Pizza not come up, there are no results in our entire 550 plus catalog with the word pizza.
Oh my God. I wish I could scan the actual content, because then that's all we talk about. So a couple of takes. One is that what I love about Paul Thomas Anderson is that he's made 10 films thus far, and I believe one of the sort of governing theories, not just about how he approaches making films, but about how his films have been received, is that he makes films, whether they make money or not, and I don't think many of them have been incredibly financially successful. He makes movies that have a lifetime well beyond their initial box office training. So we are still talking about Boogie Nights now. We are still talking about Magnolia. We will still talk about Punch Drunk Love. There Will Be Blood was voted the film of the decade by the New York Times, by many, many critics. So he makes films that etches themselves into the permanence of history.
Sure.
And Adam Naiman, great film critic who's over at The Ringer right now, wrote a great book. I have it at home. My mother-in-law bought it for me, which is very, very sweet of her. Adam Naiman's book basically traces the topography of American history through Paul Thomas Anderson, which is really great. So he starts with There Will Be Blood and then makes his way through to Magnolia. And if the book was updated, would eventually include One Battle After Another as the latest chapter. And I think that's really interesting as well. I probably have 3 points. The second point I wanted to make is there's a very, very, very famous story. PTA has sort of like made his way through film lore in many ways. I once saw him at a screening, and not many people recognized him, and I went up and chatted to him because that's how much of a film nerd I am.
Sure.
There's a very, very famous thing, which is that he went to film school and dropped out for 2 reasons. One of which is that he passed off a David Mamet script as his own, and it got a C- at film school, which kind of encouraged him to go, this is bullshit and I don't want to be here.
Wait, so did he hold on. Is the story that he
the
did
myth
it
is
test? The myth is that he did it as like a test for the school? Because, well, any way you slice it, doing that is technically plagiarism.
Yeah, I'm sure he's aware of that.
Okay, all right.
He did it as a kind of like, am I going to learn the things I need to learn?
Okay, he didn't do it to try to actually do it.
No. He did it because he wanted to prove the point for himself. And again, this is the mythology.
Okay, of course.
Yeah, print the myth.
This is the Batman origin story.
And then there is another one, which is that, and leading to my bigger point here, which is that when he was at film school, he apparently was in a conversation about like, which films do you love? And, people are out, going around. And of course, it's film school. There's a great episodes of Dawson's Creek where they do this exact scene where Dawson says his favorite filmmaker is Spielberg, and all the film snobs around him go, Spielberg? That's so contrite, it's so trite, yada, yada, yada. P.T. Anderson has that moment where he's asked, like, what are his favorite movies? And he says Terminator 2. And everyone around him was like, Terminator 2 is kind of like just action, junk, fluff, not really.
Monsters.
And he couldn't understand why, like, they would be so reductive for what he thought was a masterpiece of film.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because his films have not, they feel much more art house, I guess if you're going to use that word, than Terminator 2. But here's my bigger point. I think one overlooked thing about PTA is that he is an action filmmaker through and through and makes better action movies than most action filmmakers do. If you look at films like There Will Be Blood, there are set pieces in that are just spectacular and take your breath away every single time. Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, The Master, the Inherent Vice, all of these movies are filled with set pieces that are just riveting to watch. And he's not often viewed as an action filmmaker because, we sort of couch that term as like John Wick, David Leitch, kind of thing. Those are action filmmakers. But PTA is actually a through and through an action filmmaker. His films just happen to be about two people, and they have incredible set pieces in them, and they aren't marketed that way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't want to get too semantical in it. I think he does action incredibly well. I think better than a lot of what I would consider standard action filmmakers. Mm-hmm. But I don't. I don't want this to sound like a compliment or reductive to anyone involved, but in my internal logic of how I categorize
that's
things,
what I'm addressing.
Yeah. He's not an action filmmaker because that doesn't mean he can't do action incredibly well, but action never seems to be the point, at least the feeling that I get of his movies. It is an element in the sauce of the stew that he is making. But it's not, and I think it's something that he has a lot of fun with because you can tell there's joy in how his action sequences are done. But let's go to a John Wick, right? Mm-hmm. John Wick, the whole point of that thing, and there's other good things in John Wick, but the whole point of that thing is to do action sequences. That's why the stories are being built. Where I feel like for Paul Thomas Anderson, that's action is a thing he gets to do in stories he wants to say other things with other than action sequence.
I think the reason I'm pointing this out is that there are incredible set pieces in all of his movies that are spectacular. So even Licorice Pizza has an incredible set piece with a truck that is breathtaking to watch. And it is like, oh my God, I can't believe, the reason I'm bringing this up is that the action in his films aren't foregrounded as the reason to see the film, but because they are done in such a way that they perfectly executed a long character and story, they are breathtaking in a way that, like a lot of action filmmakers aren't.
Yeah.
And a great example of that is my son and I watched the oil derrick scene in There Will Be Blood this week. And it's like, this is spectacular.
Yeah.
And this is breathtaking. And this is like suspenseful every time I watch it.
And you can it's so funny because we talked about Terminator 2.
Yeah.
I
was going to say he's an action filmmaker in the same way that James Cameron is.
You know what would be interesting? Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
You know what would be an interesting because Terminator 2, I think the director's cut is still a little under 2 hours, or no, it's a little over 2 hours if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
This movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that.
2 hours 40 or whatever.
40.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, and I'd have to do a little bit of percentage math because it's not about the actual minutes it is, but the percentage of the movie that we would consider action scenes.
Yeah.
Because I bet you this movie probably has the same amount of time.
That's what, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get at
as a Terminator 2 does.
It's just that we don't consider him that way, even though his movies are propulsive. They move forward at a breathtaking pace.
Sure.
And he alternates. But he can alternate between that and something like Phantom Thread, which is by and large a talkie piece, really, really beautifully. And I think this sort of comes to an interesting third point that leads directly into this conversation about One Battle After Another, which is that often his films can be sold on the idea that it's placed around a sort of interesting and unique and perhaps controversial or topic of the moment. So Boogie Nights is about the porn industry.
Yep.
And the transition to the porn industry goes from film to digital. The Master is about Scientology, right? There Will Be Blood is about the oil industry. And One Battle After Another is about political revolutionaries. But often the thing that I find really interesting is that is often just a jumping off point for him.
Yeah.
And his films are actually often about two people.
Yeah. This movie, while it is about revolutionaries and immigration as a backdrop.
Yeah.
And immigration enforcement.
Yeah.
there is little to no meat on that particular bone, and that's not what the point is, right?
Yeah.
Like I just came off of, I believe by the time this airs, all 3 of the episodes of our American mass deportation series will be out on Extra History. And the thing that while I was watching this, the way that the government is shown rounding up illegal immigrants, or possibly even legal immigrants, depending on what's going on, is all very true to how it was done in the past and seems to be how it is going today. The interesting thing there to me was how, while not addressing the mechanics of the issue directly, how even though it is still pointed at 2 people or a group or something along those lines, how visceral the stakes of those things still feel. For case, this is jumping around a little bit, and I won't get into it too much. But in Benicio del Toro's his Underground Railroad thing, like as the machinations of that are moving around, you get the scale of it. You're introduced to a bunch of characters you'll never see again, but like it still feels real, lived in, and important, even though it is not given nearly as much screen time as Leo run around being like, wait, what's going on? I don't even know. Yeah. Like. There's a really cool vibes-based balance that he's able to do in these situations that I very much appreciate. So while it was funny because when it first started, I was like, oh, this is an immigration movie. I was like, oh man, how this is. Wow, I've been deep in this for like a month and a half, 2 months. Like how hard are we going here? And they both went hard, but also did not go specific at all, and it still worked, and I was amazed.
I think, yeah, again, I sort of liken it back to The Master, which is, like sells itself or was sold as kind of like an exploration of the origins of Scientology. But in fact, the way that movie operates is that it really becomes less about Scientology than it is about like the way in which 2 people's interactions can form beliefs around them and get questioned around them. Like, this is not to say that he isn't interested in those things, in those topics. It just seems like ultimately where he thinks the drama really is, and I think he's right about this, is between the interactions of 2 or 3 people. And I think more than that, fundamentally, if I rewatched Magnolia again last night, which is quite it's a chore, but I love that movie so much. It's a chore in that I really have to set aside time. And it's one of those movies where I set aside in terms of like, I want no interruptions kind of thing. Like I want this all the way through. The thing that I think really comes to mind when we look at the body of work over time that I think is interesting, and maybe it's not the most consistent thing ever, but is the idea of power unmasking itself. So in all of his movies, he features characters, like Frank T.J. Mackey from Magnolia, or Lancer Dodds, Dodds from The Master.
Yeah.
People who've built up their own identity and sense of power through their own sort of self-determination, and then eventually see that kind of get pulled away and broken apart in the movie. One thing that, P.T. Anderson is amazing at is like breakdowns. Everyone has like a complete breakdown in his movie. Reynolds Woodcock in The Phantom Thread, like men, particularly men, who have amassed a certain sort of place in the world, and then will eventually see that kind of like destroyed by the course of the movie. And I think Sean Penn's Lockjaw in this movie is that guy. And I think it's wonderful to see. And I think that's where his interest in like the dynamics of power and how these industries kind of focus around it, because one battle after another, like you kind of mentioned, alludes to the sort of political revolutionary history. It kind of feels like fantasy in some way, because it doesn't quite align with any part of our history, other than if you go back to the 1960s with the Weather Underground or, revolutionary groups like that, who did cause the kind of chaos that's described in this film. It feels more like a kind of fantastical version. This is based on a Pynchon novel, Vineland, which I haven't read yet. Than it does, feel like anything actually happening. And in the same way that The Master sort of like is loosely kind of anchored around Scientology, but kind of, sort of.
I think the fantasy bit is the French 75, right? Like But the
timelines don't really align.
Well, I mean, the cages and the people and how it's being treated, that's all literally now. So like, I was like, it's funny. I was like, when I first started watching it, I was like, when is this taking place? I'm like, and then after a while, I was like, it doesn't really matter because this is kind of a constant depending on this, like the spiral of wherever the political football is at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I quite like that for it. I think there's just been an interesting thing in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And this is just one of those like fascinating cases of a movie meeting the moment, even unintentionally, because the movie was produced, he started writing it in 1999.
Yeah.
And the movie was produced like a year or two ago before, making its way to our screens. But it seems to have met exactly at a moment when rhetoric has been about the violence of the political left. And so it's interesting how this movie will be received. I know Armand White wrote a review for the National Review that is pretty scathing of the movie. And I'm sure, people like Ben Shapiro will have, lots to say about movies that glorify Antifa or the political left. And it's weird because I don't think that that's what the movie is intending to do. And I think it's just sort of like this beautiful synergy of like how a movie can meet a particular moment and flourish because of it.
I think one of my sad points about this movie is it's a movie that I think would be very effective to people who don't actually believe in one side of politics or another to watch and then like get it. Like, I think it takes complex issues, and because it doesn't linger on them and instead focuses on characters that those political issues are happening around, you could get I feel like the empathy machine would work much better. I think what makes me sad about this is it's also exactly the kind of movie because I think a lot of people that might need to see it won't see it. And that's based on media. That's based on, advertising, etc. I think it sucks because then you will get the Ben Shapiros of the world who will use it as a cudgel and try to basically point people's opinions about it out before people see it. Because it's not, I don't want it to be this. I'm just saying it's not a Marvel. It's not a thing that's like out there all over the fucking place.
It is a Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Yeah, but like I think in the current, and I'm not happy about this, but in the current zeitgeist of theaters at this point, I don't know if that matters. I think I wish movie stars moved tickets more, but I don't think they do often anymore, and I think that's happening less and less.
Yeah, we saw with the last Mission Impossible film that there is certainly a move away from that. But Leo is kind of one of our...
He's one of the last ones.
Last movie stars.
Here's a question. Is there... I don't think the system is actually building that up anymore. Like, I don't think I don't even think Hollywood, if we're using that as an ambiguous, like full system, I don't think they want movie stars anymore. I think we've talked about they want characters they can use, and right? Like,
as I say, I think this year will be an interesting turning point of that. We're going to see the Battle of the Safdies coming up soon with Marty Supreme and the Smashing Machine, both directed by Safdie brothers separately. Mm-hmm. And I think both of those movies will be pointing to the fact that they have movie stars in them that are trying to break away from their particular images. Maybe not so much Timothée Chalamet, but certainly The Rock.
But even so, I don't know if, like, for instance, I don't know, like, The Rock still is a movie star. Leonardo DiCaprio is still a movie star. Timothée Chalamet
is an up and coming movie star.
But he doesn't. It's not Timothée Chalamet that moves tickets. It's the projects that Timothée Chalamet, like.
Let's see what happens with Marty Supreme.
We will. And that's not, again, this is all anecdotal. Yeah. I do miss when it was like enough that like, oh, Michelle Pfeiffer's in this, it'll do well.
Yeah.
And because now it doesn't seem like that's what they want. It seems like they want less power in that sort of quadrant of the thing. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it'll switch. Who knows?
Okay, we've done a lot of preamble. What
about the amble?
Yeah, what did you think about the rolling ambles of this movie?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I think there are, like a lot of his films, it's a little more complicated for me than I liked it. I think I believe that the movie is brilliant, and I really enjoyed watching the entire thing. I had a lot of fun, and I was very engaged and nervous for characters. I cared about everybody. It's shot gorgeously. The soundtrack and the use of music in it is phenomenal. Like, the score is great too, but like, I don't know, it's all put together incredibly well. Something that happens to me, I think, a lot in his movies, and this is a me thing. This is not a this is not the movie's problem. I think the movie does a really good job. I have a hard time giving like the 100% full throat, like, this is the best fucking thing ever, because I end up not liking a lot of the characters. And again, not that the performances are bad, and you can have characters you don't like in movies, but there was only one or two here where I like was
Sensei.
I love Sensei. Sensei is great.
The best.
I also really loved, I can't remember the daughter's name, but her name is Chase Infinity, the actress.
Yeah, I read the piece about how she got named.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, her parents essentially named her Chase. Infinity's her middle name. Her last name is Payne, but she doesn't use that professionally. She plays the daughter in this movie. Willa, I think the name
Willa.
is. Yeah. She got the name Chase because her parents loved the film Batman Forever and thought Chase Meridian was the most badass woman ever, that played by Nicole Kidman. And then Infinity is literally just from Toy Stories to Infinity and beyond.
There you go. Hey, I'm all for it.
We're gonna get a lot more kids and people in prominent roles in society that are named things like Chase Infinity, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Just watch out for Thanos in kindergarten when you're there, by the way.
Have people been naming their babies Thanos?
I don't know. Maybe they have.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Overall, I dug it a lot. There are bits in it that, like, because I was like, this character, why are you okay. I for whatever reason, I didn't latch onto it as super hard as I would. I will say this. I do still think as a, like, clinically, I feel like this is top 5 films for me this year so far.
Of course.
I'm dying to watch it again.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to place where my, like, why am I not like, just like, this is the best? Like, I'm still trying to posit that, because there's a splinter in my mind that and the only thing I have so far is it's because I didn't, like, connect with the characters as much, because there were elements of nearly all of them where I'm like, oh, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
anyway, that was me. And again, that's a me thing. I want to make it very clear. I think this movie is a masterpiece. I will watch it a few more times and see if I can figure out where that mind splinter is and see if I can sort of pick it out.
Pick out that mind splinter.
Pick out that mind splinter.
One thing with P.T. Anderson's movies that I've often thought about was that I didn't love There Will Be Blood the first time I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like mixed on it. I was like, the performances are extraordinary, but I don't know if I love that movie. And then, like, about a month later, I was like, I think I want to go see There Will Be Blood again. And then, like, a year later, I was like, I really want to see There Will Be Blood again. And then the fourth time around, I was like, I think I love this movie.
Yeah.
And then I've watched that movie every year. Fun fact, when I travel on planes, that movie is always on my laptop.
Sure.
I always have it with me just so I can throw it on. It's a real comforting movie for me to watch There Will Be Blood.
Interesting.
Whereas I've watched The Departed a few times and I'm always going, I still don't think this is a good movie. But There Will Be Blood, I go, every time I watch it, I'm enraptured by it. Same with The Master, same with Punch Drunk Love, same with Magnolia, same with Boogie Nights, same with a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think one interesting thing about that response is that what I've found with P.T. Anderson's movies is that there's often an enigmatic quality to it that I can't quite put my finger on in the first viewing. So Phantom Thread is a really good example of that, which is like, oh, I don't know what this movie is trying to do at this moment. I don't understand where this is going. But then that idea, almost like, Leo in Inception, will, like, plant itself in my brain and I'll keep coming back to it and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Inherent Vice is another one like that, where it's like, I didn't quite vibe with that movie, but I've watched it like 2 or 3 times now trying to figure it out. The point is, with One Battle After Another, is that it was the first time in a P.T. Anderson movie where I understood exactly what it was trying to do from start to finish. I was very satisfied by it, and I thought it was great. I really, really thought it was exceptional. The arguments that are being made on the internet, this is the movie of the decade. I think David Ehrlich over at IndieWire said this is the best movie he's seen since he became a film critic. And I understand and can certainly see all of those takes on it. And this is in no way suggesting that the movie has any problems whatsoever.
Are you going to say a mind splinter?
No. I just found that it was thus far one of the least enigmatic of his movies. And in terms of, like, I was not left asking questions about what the movie was trying to do. I was not left asking questions about, like, character motivations. I was not left asking questions about like the politics of the movie or what the characters' internal logic and motivations were. I was not left asking any questions of the sort about it. In fact, I wrote in my Letterboxd, one-liner was that the way I would hearken this movie is that it is a stoner Fury Road. It is.
I'm big into 3-word reviews.
Yep, that was it. Stoner Fury Road.
Stoner Fury Road is fucking great.
Yeah, and I love it for all of those reasons, which is that
I'm going to steal that and quote it to you on Blue Sky. I'm going to say Shahir came up with this.
And it's wonderful on those terms. I think we have. With Tom Cruise, we've been sort of talking about the fact that he's kind of akin to Paul Newman. I think what we're starting to see with Leonardo DiCaprio is that his persona is actually closer to Jeff Bridges in terms of like he's got the star power of someone like Jeff Bridges, but is always willing to subvert it and try something with it, and is not afraid of being just the skeeviest, slimiest dude on screen for all the right reasons, because he cultivates interesting projects with filmmakers that he seems to love, and he has a lot of power and clout to do that. So I love that he kind of does that, and this is like the most Lebowski of his performances in a long time.
You know what I really like about Leo as a performer?
Yeah,
is I never see him as Leonardo DiCaprio. A lot of actors that I love, I see as the actor that I love.
Yeah,
I'm really curious if we can get another Pain and Gain out of The Rock and the Smashing Machine to sort of not see Dwayne behind that, right? I am always in awe of seeing Leo in a movie because I to be perfectly honest, I don't even at this point, I think since Gatsby, clock in my subconscious that it's Leo. Like I know it's Leo, but I'm not thinking that it's Leo. Does that make sense?
I think Gatsby and The Wolf of Wall Street are the two performances that hearken to who this person might be in real life.
Maybe.
And even in both of those films, Wall Street more than Gatsby, he is willing to up in the convention and kind of see himself, basically take aim at his public persona or take aim at his idea. I think he's also smartly kind of a private guy, doesn't there's a lot of news stories about him, particularly around the fact that he dates younger women.
And he went to fucking Bezos's wedding.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff, but he, I think he generally kind of, keeps his head down and just focuses on the work more than anything. This is the first time, particularly around this movie, probably around the budget and PTA, that they've been doing like a full court press in terms of press tour. Like they're going on podcasts. They've got a Fortnite game. They're like really.
It's still blowing my fucking mind.
Yeah, they're really pushing like this movie out into the world.
I'm so curious because again, in the film, while it doesn't linger on the politics of the domestic terrorism of the French 75 trying to liberate migrants or imprisoned immigrants, etc. If the game is about like the movie doesn't linger in that, but it also does not shy away. The camera's always pointed at this very pressing real issue, even if it's not the focal point of where your attention is going.
Yeah.
You feel the world and the danger and the shit that you are in this movie. I am so curious what the sanitized Fortnite version of that is, because there's no way in fuck it even remotely touches on those issues as much as this movie does.
What I think the Fortnite tie-in reminds me of is when when we were growing up and you probably had the Sega Genesis, I had the Sega Mega Drive or whatever, the consoles were at that time. And there would be like a Batman game tie-in to the Tim Burton Batman movies. And all they would essentially do is take one mechanic of the movie and try to make a game around it. So in the Batman game for the Sega Mega Drive, which is what I had, you would drive a car through the streets of Gotham, and the main mechanic was that you had a grappling hook that would turn you around corners and things like that, or you'd have a batarang or a fight thing. So I think like that's what the sort of aim is. My point though,
but they also didn't do like Amistad or like they didn't have the video game of like fucking Shawshank. Like I'm not
and for good reason. And this comes back to my point about P.T. Anderson being an action filmmaker.
Sure,
they
didn't do that with the Phantom Thread.
The second half of this movie by the time Bob, Ghetto Pat, crawls through a tunnel and is gassed on the other side of it, the movie is almost a straight hour and change of chase sequence.
Yeah.
You know, it is like a propulsive chase sequence from that moment on.
But I think, sorry, just going back to the video game
which
space.
which to me makes great video game.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
But from even the trailer that I just watched, this is a lot of like going through tunnels and like fighting the military. But like I'm wondering.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering how many serial numbers are filed off as to why the French 75 is fighting the military. Why are you going through these tunnels?
I don't think Fortnite has that depth of storytelling.
It doesn't. But I guess my point is, I think this film works because of all of its parts.
Yeah.
And I think, so going back to your Batman Sega Genesis Mega Drive conversation.
Yeah.
A Batman Genesis game works if you strip the story or even the very minor political context out of Batman.
It doesn't include the psychosexual content of what Tim Burton's Batman was doing.
But the IP of Batman works if you just want to strip that down and do it right. I think for the transition into the medium, and we've also, by the way, seen I don't want to hark on Batman games. The Arkham series does a lot more with Batman than just grappling hooks on cars.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not based on the movie.
But I'm saying like, if you were to, I could see a phenomenal, like, oh my God, like if there was a version, if there was Spec Ops: The Line. Did you ever? Are you familiar with that?
I'm aware of it.
Essentially, it's a game that turns sort of. It's a famous military shooter that turns the idea of why a military shooter exists sort of on its head. I won't spoil it if you haven't played it. I think it's worth your time. I could see doing something with this story and this topic in a aspect of Spec Ops: The Line and have it be one of the most effective pieces of media of all time. But choosing to put this in Fortnite from a story, from a mechanical, from a marketing perspective, it blows my mind.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
Which is that I have some friends that work in game development and they work in some fairly large properties, and they know that I am a movie fanatic and a movie lover. And so from time to time, they will reach out and ask, hey, what do you think about this particular movie's capacity for tie-ins to our platform? And so I've written up little pieces, or I've written up, or I've given a summary of things that are coming up, and it'll often be in the case where movies haven't been released yet, and because they're looking to release them. So it'll be a year or two out. And I have pitched in my time really, really bad movie game tie-ins. Like, for example, one of them, I can talk about this now because it never happened, and this never went further than, hey, what do you think about this?
What's the idea?
Yeah, what's a way we could tackle this?
Yeah.
And I pitched this idea that Killers of the Flower Moon could be a really interesting educational game, still using the mechanics of the Western, sort of like Red Dead Redemption. But imagine if you played it from the perspective of the Native Americans that lived in this town that suddenly saw their loved ones being killed and murdered.
Yeah.
And then, or if you did something interesting where a character woke up and their land was gone or seized from them underneath them or something like that, and there would be an interesting tie in there. I don't think that sort of like trying to inform a game with that politics has ever played well, and I like, in my experience at least, in terms of direct movie tie-ins, which is a sort of specific breed of games. So I perfectly understand when someone approaches Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another and goes, what is the game mechanic we can apply here? Because the intentionality of these games, the Batman game and the Arkham Asylum games are really good examples here. The Batman game has a longevity of about 3 months. 3 months, maybe a year. Once the movie comes out, it is intended to just like,
you're talking about one of the movie tie-ins.
Yeah, one of the movie tie-ins that came out in 1989 when we were growing up. It's intended to basically latch on to the merchandising push for that particular movie, extend the idea of the movie to kids and to an audience for a little bit of time. But that game is not intended to last beyond 3 to 4 months. You play it in like,
most of them do. Sometimes accidentally they become classics. I
think the Riddick game is
Escape from Butcher Bay.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, that game is good.
Yeah, that's an example of a game that accidentally kind of like lingers longer.
And it does a thing that actually like teaches you more about the prison industrial complex, even though it's in space. Like, fuck, that game is great.
Accidental sort of accidental longevity.
Let's be very careful. From a publisher side, it's accidental. From a developer side, I think it's very deliberate.
And if you then if you shuffle over to something like Batman Arkham Asylum,
which is not based on a movie,
it's not based on IP, and the amount of time and development that has gone into that particular game is intended for it to last decades into the future, and we should be talking about it that way. So I think
there's games like Spider-Man 2 and the PS2 that is again, it's a Spider-Man story. It's based off that movie or whatever. But like the thing that makes it live like its longevity is not so much, it's linked to the movie. It's the mechanic of feeling like Spider-Man in New York City.
Incredible. Yeah. So we've gotten sidetracked into the game.
I don't think we have. Keep going. Where are you going with this bit?
Well, I was just going to say, I can fully appreciate that this falls into the former camp, the Batman 1989 tie-in.
This is my point. Yeah. It's not Batman. Like what? Like
it does say his name is Batman in the movie.
I know.
Yeah,
but like
Parker.
What? What are they thinking for this film? They're not going. That's not going to get the Fortnite people over to this movie.
I think there's a sort of comedic irony to the fact that it is on Fortnite as well. I think there is a sort of like ironic twist to the fact that a P.T. Anderson movie.
I need to
and I would love them to then extend this further and do Punch Drunk Love the game or Phantom Thread the game.
Should we stream us playing the one battle after another Fortnite?
I could do that actually because I have the capacity to do that. I've just never done it. I don't play games very often.
We might have to do it next week.
Yeah,
but I wonder how. So the thing about Fortnite games too is they're ephemeral.
You just came up with some sweet content, buddy.
They're ephemeral. Yeah. So like we'll have to see how long it's running. So no promises, everybody. But we could very easily do that.
And my point being is that as I said, from the point at which Bob. From the point at which Willa is taken and Bob enters a tunnel under his house, the movie is relentless.
Yeah.
And it is, and that's also why I kind of hearkened it to Fury Road. It is a relentless chase sequence. And the final sequence over the Chupacabra Hills or whatever the hills.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
the hills become like an element.
Yeah. And that's also where the Fury Road kind of analogy for me played as well, because it felt like, this epic chase sequence. I also the movie it wasn't as neat a tie-in, but I wondered about the fact that in 2008 two near perfect movies came out. There Will Be Blood by Paul Thomas Anderson and No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers.
Sure.
And No Country for Old Men featured tracking devices from the 70s that had to be activated when close to each other. And I wondered about like PTA basically saying, I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to go back to the well and like take the whole lot here.
I feel like we've also not talked about real quick Teyana Taylor in this movie, who is just like a force of nature.
She's wonderful. It's funny because her origin story in terms of how she came to be in terms of the movie. And, she's obviously been around for a little while.
Yeah.
And we loved her in 1001, the movie we did a year ago.
Yeah.
I think it was called 1001.
Yeah, because it was the name of a door. It was an address.
Incredible film, and she's wonderful in it. She's such a sort of I liken her again. I don't like doing this, but if we're thinking about Leonardo DiCaprio and Jeff Bridges, I kind of see her as a sort of a Pam Grier type figure, and that might be reductive, and I hope that doesn't come off that way. But the performance is so Foxy Brown, Jackie Brown in this movie.
Right.
I wondered about that, and I think it's wonderful. We did a show with her years ago because she came around. She was in a Kanye West video.
Yeah, Fade,
where she just is a incredible physical presence.
Yeah.
But then, a film like 1001, I really showcased that she has got a lot more going on in terms of like the depth of her capacity performance. And then I just remember we did this Christmas special with her years ago. I think it was probably 10 years ago. I worked on this Christmas special, and I remember it was her and her husband. And she just said this line, which I've repeated every year. I'm going to repeat my whole life, which was that she goes, like her husband was trying to sing a song. And she was like sitting on the couch. She goes, "You just got to put some vibrato on it." And I don't know why. I've just said that for like years go by now. Like whenever
That's your note in the back of a room.
Yeah, whenever my wife is saying something, I was like, you got to put some vibrato on that. Or like whenever like we're making eggs, I was like, you got to put some vibrato on that. You know, I don't know why. It's the way she said it. I've always said it. I think her and Chase Infinity, you know, there's obviously an allusion to the relationship between mother and daughter. And this is where the film excels for me, is that the movie, by the end of it, makes that connection of the political limitations of the parent get passed on to the child with this aspirational, hopeful quality that the child will be able to do more. And I think if you walk out, the great thing here is you walk out of the movie with American Girl playing Baha'i, where Willa is off to a protest, where Bob is on the couch trying to figure out how to use an iPhone. Yeah. And you should soar in this moment, because I think it is truly extraordinary. And in a way, that is, on the one hand, such a great exit for a movie. It's such a great movie moment. You know, it's such a great, like, oh man, I'm soaring out the door with this movie.
Well, yeah, just be careful. I won't.
Yeah. But also at the same time, for me, a little bit, I'm kind of just working through this in real time, is that it is the least enigmatic of PTA's movies, in terms of like, I often walk out of a PTA movie kind of like soaked in something that I have to negotiate and figure out. Whereas this, I'm kind of like, yeah, she rules. And the world is going to be a better place. And maybe in terms of like the time that we are in right now, that kind of like broad optimism is what we need. I also, you know, there's a fun little details about PTA. I think he mentions this on the Mark Maron podcast that he did, which is that, you know, he has like 4 daughters, I think, or 3. Okay. He's got like 4 or 5 kids, like quite a few kids.
Yeah.
And he loves this idea. I love listening to him talk about this, because it's such a humanizing thing. He talks about the fact that he has to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And he writes from 4 till 7. And then real life takes over when the kids wake up. And he's like, I have no time to do this other thing. So then I take over, and like our house is chaos. You know, he says our house is basically like children running around in all directions, screaming at each other, and Turner Classic Movies playing in the background. And I, you know, like I think this movie is kind of a love letter to his daughters. You know, like it is a love letter to the power and strength that he believes in his daughters.
Yeah.
And I love, you know, like when she walks out to American Girl at the end and is like, grown into adulthood on her own, and this is such a girl dad movie. I kind of like, yeah, I'm with this. I feel it. I love it. When Leo, or, you know, Ghetto Pat says the line, I can't brush her hair. I don't know how to do her hair. You know, that might allude to the fact that he was also raising biracial children. Right. Matt Rudolph, you know, is African American. And you know, and I think all of that plays into like what makes PTA such a great director and a great writer, is that, you know, he finds these like little personal touches in it. Like, you know, when Sensei is taking us through the sort of mirage of his Underground Railroad, Sensei stops and introduces us to all the characters.
Yeah,
you know, he's like,
I love.
This is this person, this is her daughter. You know, like, and these are these characters. And he's like, he's really the reason why we love Sensei is that he is, to quote from Pulp Fiction, he is his brother's keeper. You know, like,
so there's an interesting, this is another reason why I think that sequence, the second act sort of sequence with Sensei going through the Underground Railroad he had for the immigrants. Yeah. I think the thing that gets me the most upset about the discussion about immigrants in the United States and the militarization of the border is it's all about numbers. Yeah. It's all about, well, this many immigrants got in, this many got detained, this many whatever. And I think when you're thinking about immigration, the thing that is lost when you get into all of the rhetoric is that every number is an actual person. We do a thing where we mention in one of the episodes about passports and how passports like changed over time. Like we used to not need a picture for a passport. Yeah. And then when photography first started going through, people started doing fun things with their passport photos. Like there was one that just took a bunch with their cats, or one that was like 18 boys in a school. Like they're like, and you see these old photos of immigrants that came to the United States on their passports. And like, when you look at these things, you realize that they are like, I mean, it is much easier to see, and it should be talked about in this way, that every one of these numbers is a person. And so tying it back to the film, when Sensei is walking you through, and even though you don't get time with any of these people, he is acknowledging every background character that is there, giving them a name, saying the familial tie to it ever, introducing them to Leo's character.
Yeah.
And it is a wonderful subtextual reminder that every one of these people that we're seeing in fucking cages is a human being with a life. And that's something that is lost entirely on most of the mainstream discussion of all of this.
I mean, I think little details that I loved is like the military walking through the cages, which again is a potent visual reminder of the kids in cages moment that happened during the first Trump presidency. And there's a sequence,
or the people in cages that is happening during the current Trump presidency.
Yeah. And the reflective blankets are kind of like a potent metaphor as well. And I love that there's a moment here where we walk past those people in cages, and they're using the reflective blanket as a ball, and they're bouncing it up and down between each other, because you're reminded, oh, these are kids.
Yeah.
Like these are just kids that are like living here.
Here's another thing you brought up about the movie. Let's talk about the fucking Christmas Club. What was it?
The Christmas Explorers
Club. Christmas Explorers
Hail
Club.
Saint Nick.
Holy shit.
I love Tony Goldwyn in this, by the way. I think he's just so great.
The thing about this, Lockjaw, the whole plot point is Lockjaw's trying to get into this, what is essentially a white supremacist secret society that runs the country.
Yeah. Or do they? Do they just have tunnels and shotguns?
No, I think they run I think it's think it's like, because they have all these military whatever.
Yeah.
And to do it, he has to kill what is essentially a biracial daughter of his, and yada. To your point about Paul Thomas Anderson, like taking men in like positions of power and sort of deconstructing them and having them lose their goddamn mind. I think another thing he's very good at, and he's excellent at in this movie, is doing a very dichotomous thing that I feel like we are starting to see more publicly in real life. And I hope the message is sort of coming through. And that is, there are incredibly powerful, dangerous men who are causing incredible amounts of harm and damage and death to many, many people throughout the country based on racist ideologies, etc. Right? However,
anti-vaccine.
However, they are also huge fucking dorks. And I think, and what this movie does a really good job at is it doesn't neuter the terrifyingness of those characters, but it shows you how fucking weird and dorky they are. And there's, I think in current media and culture, you think of like dorks and geeky nonsense as inherently not dangerous. But as we're starting to see with a lot of the violence that's going on with a lot of terminally online people, and I think the way, and honestly, if you go back and watch our Secret Societies episodes or Nazi occultism, every terrifying group or thing is a bunch of nerds playing make-believe. Like, it's fucking crazy. And what I really appreciated about this movie, and I haven't seen done this well in a very long time, is you got both sides of this coin.
Yeah.
It's not an omnipresent nightmare thing like the Empire in Star Wars that is like just on the ball. Like, there's no way the Empire in Star Wars is complete fantasy, not because it takes place in space with wizards.
Yeah.
It's a complete fantasy because it is a rigid, everyone's up on the up and up, and they're doing this whole thing in an empirical structure, and none of them are like praying to some random bullshit that got them through like the dark. Like, I know I'm rambling. I loved seeing a accurate depiction of what a real life evil is. It does not neuter it, does not say it is not powerful or scary or dangerous, but it's like, look at these fucking nerds.
Yeah. I have two contextual points that I think will crystallize what you're saying, which is a headline I have not forgotten since I read it the first time. And I'm looking at the article now. It came out 8 months ago in The Guardian by Rebecca Shaw. And I wanted to
I think I know which one you're going to say.
Yeah. Chef's kiss to Rebecca Shaw for this. The headline is, I knew one day I'd have to watch powerful men burn the world down. I just didn't expect them to be such losers.
Yeah, yeah.
And the byline here is, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's desperation to be cool as they suck up to Donald Trump is so cringe and makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
The second thing is we have an episode in the pipeline for All the President's Men.
Yep.
I recently read the book, the Bernstein and Woodward book that movie is based upon. And my favorite observation in that book, I think it's in the movie as well, is when Deep Throat says to Woodward, I think he goes, "These aren't bright guys. You know, they just had a plan and it got out of hand.
Yeah.
You know, like these aren't particularly bright guys."
Yeah.
And I love that idea with the Christmas Explorers Club is that these aren't particularly, I mean, their power is unwieldy, but their ideology is so stupid that it like belies, you're sort of wondering like, how does one ascertain so much power to be held at an ideology that is so profoundly dumb? You know,
it's because all of this stuff is because you do dumb things in secret. The more something is a secret, the more power it sort of gets, even if it is really dumb, and then it can turn dangerous. It's 4chan. It's all this stuff on the internet. Like it's a different power structure, but it's also like the concept of mind rot is real.
brain rot. Yeah.
Brain rot.
Yeah.
And mind splinters, brain rot.
Yeah.
And there's online radicalization in that space too. But then when you get into, like, before the internet, weird dudes had to huddle in basements and cloaks and start saying that, like, you know, the bones of this person have magic power. Like, it's all bullshit, but you do it long enough and it's secret enough, it becomes doctrine to you, and then that secret emanates power because not everyone knows it. Like, it's fucking crazy.
The other reference point for this movie that kind of really comes through in Sean Penn's character, Lockjaw, is Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
And Jack D. Ripper, who believes that, you know, like his precious bodily fluids are being stolen. Just like when they said in this film, you know, she's a sperm thief, a semen demon. You know, I was just like, Buck Turgidson, and I think
wanted to steal his essence, his power.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Sean Penn is really, like, he feels to me like George C. Scott from Doctor Strangelove. Yeah. It's a really great, snarling, like, and this is the part of the film that is enigmatic to me, that I actually do find, like, has a sort of depth of complexity that I really like. I kind of am immediately, it's easy to understand exactly what it is right there, which is that, you know, he is both sexually attracted to being dominated by black women, but also very aware that his aspirations and where he wants to be in life is a white supremacist. Yeah. And so he's like, his entire driving force is like negotiating those two things, and his target is Willa.
Yeah.
And his target is Willa because on the one hand, he's like, you know, maybe we could have gotten to know each other kind of thing, but he's also like snarling and willing to kill her right away. And I also, I think as a story beat, and as, you know, sort of this idea of these aren't bright guys, this idea that he like basically invades cities on the you know, he's like, invent some sort of pretense for us to go into the city. Yeah. And then at some point during that, during the sort of ensuing protests, you know, they're like calling in Eddie Van Halen, and what looks like a CIA military operative starts walking through the protest on the protester side and throws a Molotov cocktail.
Well, he doesn't look like one. He has the build of one. Yeah. But he gets out of a van. Yeah. And he's wearing a Van Halen shirt with a mask over his face with a Molotov cocktail.
Calling in Eddie Van Halen. And it's like this sort of pretense of like, you know, like,
it also doesn't linger on that moment. Like that moment.
But that's where the details are really cool in this movie, and are really, you know, really, really sharp. Yeah. And, you know, it's weird to say this. I think this is PTA's, well, I don't want to use this word, but it's like his dumbest movie, but in a way that I kind of love.
How about we do this? How about it's his most mainstream movie?
It's also his most accessible movie.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah. It is, and I don't mean that in a pejorative term. I think it's fantastic. I think
it's incredibly. I think it's incredibly accessible. Yeah. I think. That's kind of what I was saying at the beginning of this. I think you can. I think a viewer of this can get the undercurrents of what he's trying to say much clearer than many films who try to
many of his own films.
Like,
you know?
but even like
There Will Be Blood as a conversation between capitalism and religion is hard to disseminate.
Let's even go to Civil War, the movie, not the concept.
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't connect with Civil War because what people wanted or was interested in was the mechanics of the Civil War that they were talking about, not, oh, what are the role of photojournalists in doing this stuff?
Eddington's another good example.
What was that?
Eddington is a really good example.
Eddington's another good example. Yeah. So like you look at those movies and like you would say like, yeah, you need a little bit more, not media literacy, but you need to like either pay more attention or be more interested to get the vibe of what you're doing.
Yeah.
This movie by design, one battle after another, you don't need that and you still get it.
Yeah. And it is exciting to watch. I don't grapple with this question of like why there's a Fortnite movie adaptation.
I do. I really do. Because I think when you put this in Fortnite and like again, I have not played it, so maybe I am wrong. I will let you know. I think you lose
100%. I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is the movie, is sort of coming back to my earlier point about Paul Thomas Anderson being an action filmmaker. The movie is riveting action from start to finish. Sure. And I can see why.
But from a
you could just pitch this as an action movie.
But from a branding standpoint, it seems like a huge waste of money. Like that's where I'm circling.
The movie cost $150 million. They need to recoup their investment. At this point, the movie, according to Box Office Mojo, after it did $24 million domestically and $28 million internationally. So it is a long road to recoup not just $150 million on the budget, plus the marketing.
My point is, I don't think the Fortnite tie is going to help them.
I don't think it is either, but what I'm saying is I get it. Like
I don't get it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's safe to say that both Sheer and I really like this movie. You should go see it if you have not. I'm going to see it again. So maybe I'll see you there.
That's my other point about this was like 2 hours and 40 minutes. At the end of it, I was like, I could totally go watch that again tonight.
Yeah. No, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the only podcast about the film One Battle After Another. Shahir, when you are not casually driving down a hilly road until you roll down your window and pull a shotgun, where can folks find you?
You can find me probably aiming backwards into the car at my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA. Matt, when you are trying to figure out the code word that will get you into the Fortnite game, where can people find you?
You can find me just sifting through my pile of nunchucks over at my website, extra history or extra credits on the YouTube machine. Oh, here's something great. Yesterday on the Magic the Gathering YouTube channel.
Okay.
I am on an episode of Jetlag the Game where we went around New York City to gather mana or land to play Magic the Gathering with the new Spider-Man set.
Mm-hmm.
It's me, Ben, Adam, and Sam. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Jetlag, but oh boy, I've been a fan of that. And it was so nice to actually play the game with the boys. And it's awesome. We play a really, really fun game. Please go check that out. It's on Magic the Gathering's website or YouTube, not the Jetlag YouTube. It is a paid promotion, but it is an 1.5-hour episode with so little paid promotion other than showing you the cards. I'm super thrilled with it.
Yeah.
So please go check that out. Next week could be a couple things.
Yeah.
Definitely, listeners, watch All the President's Men because that's coming up. If you're interested in keeping up with us and like some of the older films that we're gonna do. There's something else coming out. I love that this is my line every time. We'll figure it out. We'll bleesky you.
Yeah. We got stuff coming down the pipeline. Yeah. We'll definitely. I've done a pretty bad job of keeping people up to date on what's been happening. Just life has taken over, and we don't make enough money to like offshoot that to other people to keep us afloat. It would be nice. We are, as we've kind of mentioned, we are trying to take the podcast a little bit more seriously in terms of like making sure people are aware, making sure that people can contact us, making sure that people can see our content in different platforms.
You want to buy us a coffee? There's a link.
Yeah, buy a coffee. Do the things. We appreciate all of that.
Email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Tell us what you thought about One Battle After Another. We love doing this. We want to keep doing this. We need your help.
Leave a YouTube comment on any of the episodes. There's one that launches a day of the back catalog.
Yeah.
If every one of our listeners actually left one comment a week, it would weirdly catapult the YouTube page, which is insane to think, but I've been in this game long enough to know that is true.
We desperately need your help to keep this going, to keep this thing that we're going to keep doing.
Help us, Topam fam. You're our only hope. All right. Anyway, with all that begging out of the way, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.